Even though same-sex couples can legally marry in 6 states and the District of Columbia, if those couples are binational, one American citizen and one non-citizen, they are considered strangers in the eyes of immigration law. 2 immigration attorneys and leaders of the immigration equality movement are embarking on an ambitious battle to change this through the courts and see an interesting opportunity with the administration's new position on DOMA. I'm here with Noemi Mislia and Lavi Salaway of Mislia and Salaway Attorneys, an immigration-focused law firm that has been making some radical moves lately on behalf of same-sex binational couples. Welcome to Same Sex Sunday.
Hi.
You're both founders.
And Phil, I just want to say that, there are also foreign countries that allow same-sex marriage, and they would be included in this type of case.
Excellent. Yeah, absolutely.
Where a U.S. citizen marries a foreign national or, in a foreign country that allows it as well.
Right. And we actually saw that with the Windsor case, and they were married in they were married in Canada.
Right.
And you're both founders of Immigration Equality and Stop the Deportations DOMA Project, which is for the first time seeking to fight DOMA in the courts from an immigration standpoint, from the standpoint of legally married same-sex binational couples whose states where they reside can recognize their marriages but can't allow one partner to sponsor the other for residency. What is the status of this effort currently?
Well, so we're working with 12 couples, and in the case of 10 of those couples, they're working their way through deportation proceedings. One of the criteria for bringing the couples on board in the project was that they were already in deportation proceedings, and therefore the foreign national spouse was facing sort of the ultimate manifestation of DOMA's discrimination, which is the government's trying to deport your husband or your wife because you're a gay couple. And so we're working with them, and those cases are moving through the immigration courts. And at the same time, in each case, the couple, the American citizen half of the couple has filed what's called an alien relative petition, which is a marriage-based petition for a green card for the foreign national spouse. All of those petitions are pending and have not yet received decisions except for one. And in one case, we received a denial a few weeks ago as expected. The denial cited the Defense of Marriage Act as the sole reason for denying the petition. We're now taking that denial on appeal to the Board of Immigration Appeals, which is the next step in the process for that kind of case.
All right. And oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yes, more importantly, it's for those cases that are in removal proceedings, the focus, too, is to ask the immigration judge or the enforcement officer not to deport these folks to the foreign national, not to deport them, to hold the case in abeyance until DOMA is resolved one way or another.
Right.
Because banishment from this country has such a stiff penalty that, somebody gets removed and they can't come back for 10 years. Yes, their waivers are available, but they're hard and complicated and take a long time. So to have somebody removed at this point where, DOMA, such good news about DOMA has been made would really be awful.
Right. And really, this is probably the ultimate nightmare that the government is literally stepping in and breaking up these families and sending people to foreign countries that are.
This is DOMA at its worst.
It is absolutely.
It's DOMA at its worst.
Now, 2 weeks ago on Same Sex Sunday, I asked GLAAD's Jansen Wu whether or not this means that with the administration taking a different stance on DOMA, deciding not to continue defending DOMA in the courts, whether or not this might affect the enforcement of these laws. But we've seen now the Department of Justice is very firm in saying we will continue to enforce the law just as we always have. So what's your take on where the administration is going to be helpful in terms of supporting this effort to try and end the deportations, and where are they limited, really?
Well, let me echo Jansen Wu's comments, which it's absolutely true that the government will continue to enforce the law because it is still the law of the land, and the executive branch is not permitted to laws it wants to enforce. However, the Attorney General's decision on February 23rd to withdraw from defense in these DOMA cases, particularly in the First Circuit, for example, where Jensen Wu's cases or GLAD's cases, indicates essentially that the executive branch is on our side. They agree with us. The folks that are facing deportation, they shouldn't be deported. They shouldn't be subject to this ultimate punishment of banishment and being barred for 10 years simply because of an unconstitutional law. And so while they must continue to enforce the Defense of Marriage Act, and they cannot give a green card to the same-sex spouse of a U.S. citizen today, they do have broad discretion how they approach deportation proceedings in terms of whether or not they're held in abeyance or delayed, or not they're terminated for now, and whether the government simply sort of allows the clock to run out essentially and allows people to stay here safely while we wait to see how the ultimate fate of DOMA is determined, whether that's by legislative repeal or being struck down by the court. And I want to say very quickly that this is actually not really a DOMA issue. Really, this is the government's responsibility in its allocation of resources to exercise prosecutorial discretion. We have seen just in the Obama administration two examples of the Department of Homeland Security determining that in the case of widows of U.S. citizens and DREAM Act eligible young people, that they did want to create policy to ensure that those individuals were not deported while there was a legislative fix in the works. So, family unification, humanitarian issues are a variety of considerations when the executive branch makes decisions about how to allocate its law enforcement resources. And certainly when it comes to binational couples who are married and who are going to be torn apart by deportation that the Attorney General thinks is based on an unconstitutional law, it's appropriate to look at the landscape, look at the context, and determine whether there's a policy that could be formulated to keep these couples together for the time being.
Excellent point, and I hope that we see some sort of fix in the short term as
I don't
we continue
think we be passive about it. I think as a community we should actually really pressure the administration. Representative Nadler and Congresswoman Zoe Lofgren, who's the ranking member on the subcommittee on immigration, have both called as of last week on the Obama administration to halt the deportations of gay and lesbian spouses of U.S. citizens. And I think everybody listening to Same Sex Sunday should be if they feel the same way, they should be in contact with their representatives and their senators and ask them to call on the administration to halt the deportations.
Excellent. Thanks for that. Who else are you working with in terms of the case against on behalf of the same-sex binational couples against DOMA? I know the case is still in its early stages. We don't really know what it's going to look like, but who are some of the organizations that you'll be partnering with?
Well, let me be clear. The work that we're doing is, regards our clients who are currently in immigration court proceedings. We're not at this moment talking about a federal court case. But we are partnered with marriage equality organizations, with Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation, GLAD with 2 A's, to help formulate the message around DOMA and help the couples really get their stories out there. And other couples who are in earshot should know that part of our work is it's not only about going into courtrooms, but it's also about going into, the living rooms and the water coolers across the United States and getting the stories of binational couples, particularly married binational couples who are feeling the discriminatory impact of DOMA, getting those stories out there and discussed. So litigation is a part of this. Our cases are currently moving through the immigration court system, so we're not quite there yet. but federal court is definitely an option for these couples. But what the entities that we're partnering with right now, the objective is around getting those stories out there and getting that message out there. And we have been doing that since July, but of course the Attorney General and the President of the United States have now come on board and joined our message. So we have a great opportunity, and we have great partners in this now. We need to take that opportunity and make people more aware and sort of move this issue forward and protect couples in the present tense. There's a long-term struggle out there that includes litigation, but there are people who are facing there's a young man in Rockville, Maryland, who is facing deportation on Wednesday to El Salvador. He's married to his spouse. They've been together for 8 years. We need to stop those deportations from happening.
Excellent.
And Phil, I mean, this only happened, the announcement was made less than 2 weeks ago. So, it's taking time to formulate, to reach out to other pro-immigrant groups, right, which don't have gay binational couples on their radar screen. I've talked to several, and they said, "Oh my God, yeah, I see what you mean. Talk to us and educate us, and we'll get on this with you." It's very, very novel, even to many pro-immigrant rights groups.
Which is
they haven't seen the issue.
Right, which is so frustrating for those of us in the LGBT community, especially those of us who have been advocating for comprehensive immigration reform for many, many years, to see that there are still a lot of immigration activists out there that just don't have this issue on their radar, and hopefully we can all work together. But let's talk about how people can get involved, other than contacting their representative and senator. How can people get involved in a larger sense, in a long-term sense, to really sort of help make light work of what is certainly going to be a monumental task of really sort of changing the entire culture of how of immigration law and enforcement?
Well, we certainly are inviting couples who are either separated, but gay binational couples who have been separated, who are exiled to other countries, forcibly exiled to other countries, or who are facing the threat of separation, either through deportation or otherwise, to contact us. You can contact us at our website, which is stopthedeportations.com or stopthedeportations@gmail.com if you want to email us. Because we are really trying to include a diverse array of circumstances of LGBT families who are grappling with this, and we're trying to encourage people to share their stories. It does not involve necessarily revealing your name, which can be totally confidential. But a lot of the couples have children. There's an estimate from the Williams Institute that 25% of the 36,000 binational couples in the United States are raising children, and that means that we're talking not only about a couple being torn apart, but potentially a parent being pulled away from children. So we really want to continue what we're doing. We've had dozens and dozens of couples who have submitted their stories, people from all over the world who have been forced to go find a country to live in, and people in the United States who are facing very real imminent danger of being separated. So the number one thing that couples can do if they want to get involved in our project is, really help us advance that, get those stories out there.
And, the more stories are out there, the more people hear about it. And you can't imagine how many people have contacted us as, seeing some light at the end of the tunnel, seeing a glimmer of hope to what they think is such a devastating terror that they live with every day. So if only for that, for now, they can have, some support.
Thank you. And I think in all aspects of this movement.
And certainly in the coming, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Levy.
I was going to say, in the coming weeks, we're going to see in both the Senate and the House legislation introduced to repeal the Defense of Marriage Act. And while, many of us may be armchair, observers of the political, process in Washington, and we may take a skeptical view of how quickly that legislation can pass, it's really important that we not so much focus on, the odds of it passing, but instead really take advantage of that opportunity and put a bullseye on the Defense of Marriage Act and fight as hard as we can to maximize the number of co-sponsors, to get committee hearings where we can in the Senate, to really grab attention at this moment that the President and the Attorney General have come out, fully on our side in this regard, and relegate the Defense of Marriage Act to history. And we have it within our grasp, but we really have to be energized and aggressive about it. And the introduction of the legislation will give us a focus for that effort. It does something else as well. Courtrooms do not operate in a vacuum. The most important court is the court of public opinion. And when we support that legislation, and when in the last Congress, the Respect for Marriage Act, which was Representative Nadler's DOMA repeal bill, immediately garnered 120 co-sponsors. That is fantastic. First time out, 120 co-sponsors. We need to do better in this Congress. We don't have to pay too much attention to the fact that the Republicans are in control. We have a lot of work ahead of us. We're sending signals to judges around the country, and we're changing, as you can see from the polling data, we're changing the hearts and minds of the American people around this issue.
Excellent. Well, yeah, and dealing with changing those hearts and minds, no matter what your issue is in this equality movement, it's important we tell our stories, and we tell the stories of our friends and neighbors who are being affected adversely by these legal challenges. So I want to thank you for telling the stories today of those people who are being challenged because they are same-sex binational couples, and for all that you do for same-sex binational couples. And again, the website is stopthedeportations.com. Check it out.